Hi guys, welcome to Dial M Media. I'm Mitch, aka The Duke. Today I'll be revealing to you the super duper mystical mysteries passed down to me by the Shaolin Masters themselves. The ubiquitous and ever-present enigma that is the 2-5 progression. The 2-5 chord progression is the unifying bread and butter of jazz music, and can be found in just about every written standard and song. And before you go screaming out examples in the comments, yes, there do exist some compositions that don't contain 2-5s. You all get smartass points up front. Well done. In this video, we'll be exploring the moving parts of the 2-5 progression, from the basic fundamentals to the inclusion of all possible upper tensions. We'll then talk about the interaction of these various upper tensions and the invocation of things like tone, texture, motion, and feeling. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So let's begin with the fundamental ingredients. To make things easier, I've scored this entire analysis in C. First, we have a minor 7th chord built on the 2nd degree of C, which consists of D, F, A, and C. This is a D minor 7th chord. Now, for the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to omit the 5th degree for now. Next, we have a dominant 7th chord built on the 5th degree of C, consisting of G, B, D, and F. This is a G7th chord. Again, I'm going to omit the 5th degree, the D. Now I'm going to split these voicings so that we have the bass notes in the bass clef and the remaining upper notes in the treble clef. So first things first, the most obvious change occurring between these two chords is in the bass. The D either rises by a 4th up to G or drops by a 5th to the G below it. When we look at the upper chord tones in the treble clef, we notice that one of the notes, F, remains static while the other note, C, drops a semitone down to the B. This is the primary resolving action of a conventional 2-5 progression. The third of the minor 7-2 chord remains the same but functionally changes to become the 7th of the dominant 7-5 chord. Meanwhile, the 7th of the 2 chord drops down a semitone to become the 3rd of the 5 chord. This particular voicing of the 7th above the 3rd in the 2 chord is known as the A voicing. But we can also invert it to flip the voicing so that the 3rd is on the top. This is known as the B voicing. Now, before we even move on to adding any upper tensions, there are already several musical interactions at work here, with some interesting implications. First, we have the direction of the bass movement. Do we go up a 4th or down a 5th? This may seem irrelevant, but believe it or not, each of these can be used to achieve completely different emotive and tonal effects. Dropping down a 5th means that the 5 chord is going to fundamentally sound deeper than the 2 chord, meaning it actually lands heavier.
Hello there.
Rising up a 4th results in the 5 chord landing higher and, by extension, lighter.
Another happy landing.
Practically speaking, this distinction is useful if, for example, you're using a 2-5 to resolve to the relative minor and you want to play up the darker tonality. Conversely, if you're coming out of a sad and melancholic section and you want to raise the mood as you come to the end of the phrase, you can create a sense of relief by jumping up to the dominant bass note. Let's listen to these two contrasts in one of my favorite renditions of the jazz standard, Georgia on My Mind.
Georgia, the whole day through, this whole sweet song, keep Georgia on my mind. Oh, Georgia, comes as sweet and clear as moonlight peaceful dreams I see by the road.
Second, we have the option of either the A or the B voicing in the upper parts. Using the A voicing with the two chords minor seventh on the top, where the resolution happens, means that the resolution itself is higher in register, making it brighter and more prominent. Using the B voicing with the two chords minor seventh on the bottom places the resolution lower in register and makes it thicker but also more subtle and dull. These are the types of things you want to keep in mind if you're arranging for bands or if you're accompanying a soloist or a vocalist. Brighter A voicings can be good for shout choruses and crescendos, but thicker and subtler B voicings can be better if you're trying to stay under a singer, for example. Third, we have the option to not resolve the upper voicing of the 2/5 progression. I bring this up because it's something not often taught anymore and you don't really find it in a lot of contemporary music. But there was a time in the 80s and 90s when most great songs incorporated this technique, namely the suspended 5 chord.
If I can reach the stars, baby, in my good day, the world.
Now, most of us, I'm sure, are aware of suspended chords or sus chords, but most jazz musicians today use them exclusively to delay the resolution of the 5 dominant 7th chord. In this context, I would encourage you to think of the sus chord as an entity on its own. When broken down here, we can see that it's essentially the 2 chord over the 5 bass note. It has a bright and energetic sound that lends itself well to building anticipation of what's to follow, for example, in an intro to a song, and it sounds like this. This concludes part 1 of this tutorial series on the 2/5 progression. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Please drop a like and subscribe to help us defeat the algorithm, and feel free to drop a comment down below. Until the next time, this is the Duke, signing off.